Most people believe obedience is a conscious decision, that people follow instructions because they agree, respect, or understand. Psychology tells a different story. Obedience often happens before understanding, before agreement, and sometimes even against personal interest. The human mind is designed to respond automatically to certain emotional signals called psychological triggers. These triggers bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious. They create compliance that feels voluntary but isn't fully chosen. This video will break down 7 of the most powerful triggers that cause people to obey without realizing it. Not through force, not through intelligence, but through emotional conditioning. Understanding these triggers does not make you dangerous. It makes you aware. And awareness is the only defense against manipulation. The conscious mind believes it is in control. But the subconscious mind reacts faster, much faster. Before you analyze a request, your subconscious evaluates tone, posture, certainty, and emotional pressure. This evaluation happens in milliseconds. By the time logic engages, your body has already leaned toward compliance or resistance. Obedience does not begin with agreement. It begins with emotional interpretation. This is why intelligent people can be manipulated. Why awareness alone doesn't guarantee protection. Why obedience often feels natural. The subconscious does not ask, "Is this right?" It asks, "Is this safe?" The first trigger is authority. Authority is the strongest obedience trigger. Not because authority is correct, but because it feels safe. From childhood, the subconscious learns that authority figures control safety, punishment, and reward. Over time, the mind associates confidence, certainty, and command with survival. When authority speaks clearly, the subconscious relaxes. When authority hesitates, obedience weakens. This is why people follow confident leaders, even when they are wrong, and question hesitant experts, even when they are right. Authority does not require intelligence. It requires certainty. Authority is communicated through tone before language. A calm, controlled voice signals dominance. Hesitation signals weakness. The subconscious reacts instantly to vocal certainty. Words become secondary. This is why a confident lie can overpower a hesitant truth. Why command-style speech creates compliance. Why questioning authority feels uncomfortable. The mind obeys tone before meaning. The subconscious does not analyze symbols, it obeys them. Uniforms, formal clothing, titles, and settings activate learned authority responses. The symbol itself carries power, not the person. This is why the same instruction feels different depending on who delivers it. Why appearance influences obedience more than content. After obedience, logic catches up. People ask, "Why did I do that?" The decision was already made subconsciously. The conscious mind only approved it after the fact. Regret does not mean stupidity. It means awareness arrived late. True authority never needs aggression. Aggression signals insecurity. Calm certainty signals control. The subconscious submits to stability. Authority loses power when observed consciously. The moment you notice tone, posture, and certainty, the spell weakens. Awareness restores choice. The second trigger is scarcity. Scarcity creates urgency before logic has time to speak. When something feels limited, the subconscious interprets it as valuable. Not because it truly is, but because losing it feels dangerous. The human mind evolved in environments where scarcity meant survival risk. Food, shelter, protection. Missing out could mean death. That ancient wiring still exists. When scarcity appears, rational thinking narrows, time feels compressed, choices feel fewer. The subconscious shifts from evaluation to reaction. This is why people agree to things they normally wouldn't. Why pressure accelerates decisions. Why regret often follows scarcity-based choices. Scarcity does not persuade. It rushes. FOMO is not a social phenomenon, it is biological. The subconscious associates missing out with exclusion. And exclusion historically meant vulnerability. This is why scarcity messages override personal boundaries. Why people say yes, even when uncomfortable. Why hesitation disappears under pressure. The mind is not thinking, do I want this? It is thinking, what happens if I don't? Scarcity reframes inaction as loss. And the subconscious hates loss more than it values gain. Time pressure is scarcity's sharpest weapon. When time feels limited, the subconscious suppresses doubt. There is no room for reflection, no space for intuition. Only action. This is why limited time offers work. Why deadlines feel intense. Why rush decisions feel irreversible. The subconscious treats urgency as threat. And threat demands response. Most modern scarcity is artificial. But the subconscious does not distinguish real from manufactured threats. Repetition creates belief. Belief creates urgency. Urgency creates obedience. The mind reacts the same way every time. Scarcity loses power when time is restored. Pause interrupts urgency. Breath restores perspective. The moment you slow down, scarcity collapses. The third trigger is fear. Fear narrows the mind. It shuts down curiosity, suppresses critical thought, eliminates nuance. When afraid, people do not seek truth. They seek relief. Fear pushes the subconscious into survival mode. And survival mode obeys direction. This is why fear-based messaging works. Why threats feel convincing. Why control increases during crisis. Fear removes alternatives. Fear alone causes paralysis. Fear combined with authority causes obedience. When frightened, the subconscious looks for direction. Whoever appears calm becomes leader. This is not trust. It is survival alignment. Fear feels rational in the moment. The body reacts before thought. Logic follows to justify the reaction. This is why fear-based decisions feel right initially and wrong later. Fear repeated becomes belief. Once internalized, it no longer needs stimulus. The subconscious maintains it automatically. This is how fear becomes identity. Fear dissolves when the body calms. Breathing slows reaction. Awareness restores choice. Fear cannot survive observation. Fear thrives in unconsciousness. Awareness starves it. This is the psychological difference between control and freedom. The fourth trigger is consistency. The subconscious values consistency over truth. Once a choice is made, the mind begins to protect it. Not because it was correct, but because reversing it feels dangerous. Inconsistency threatens identity. The subconscious asks, if I was wrong before, what does that say about me? So instead of changing course, it doubles down. This is why people defend harmful beliefs. Why they continue unhealthy habits. Why admitting error feels painful. Consistency is not about logic. It is about emotional safety. The mind prefers being wrong consistently over being uncertain momentarily. Consistency begins with something small, a word, a promise, a public statement. Once expressed, the subconscious feels pressure to align future behavior with past actions. This is why manipulators ask for small agreements first. Because once the mind says yes, even quietly, saying no later feels like betrayal. The commitment doesn't bind logic. It binds identity. The subconscious fears social contradiction. When a commitment is made publicly, consistency pressure multiplies. Backing out risks embarrassment, and embarrassment feels like rejection. The mind chooses internal discomfort over social exposure. This is how obedience becomes voluntary and invisible. Logic suggests correction. Consistency demands defense. When these collide, the subconscious chooses consistency. This is why arguments fail. Why evidence is ignored. Why people cling to beliefs despite proof. Consistency loses power when identity is separated from behavior. You are not your past decision. You are the awareness observing it. The moment identity loosens, change becomes possible. The fifth trigger is validation. Validation is not vanity, it is survival wiring. The subconscious associates approval with belonging. Belonging meant protection. Rejection meant danger. So the mind adjusts behavior to secure acceptance, often without awareness. When validation becomes primary, self-trust fades. Decisions are filtered through others' reactions. Identity becomes external. The subconscious learns to obey approval cues instead of intuition. Praise releases emotional reward. The subconscious remembers that feeling and seeks to repeat it even at personal cost. This is how obedience becomes addictive. When approval controls behavior, authority becomes unnecessary. People regulate themselves. This is the most efficient form of obedience. Validation loses power when self-observation replaces approval-seeking. The subconscious relaxes when acceptance comes from within. Freedom begins there. The sixth trigger is reciprocity. The subconscious is deeply uncomfortable with imbalance. When someone gives us something, attention, kindness, help, the mind feels pressure to restore balance. This pressure does not come from politeness. It comes from survival instinct. In early human groups, imbalance threatened social stability. Those who did not reciprocate were excluded. That fear still exists. The subconscious interprets favors as social debt, and debt demands repayment. Obedience often follows, not because we agree, but because we want the discomfort to end. Reciprocity does not require large gestures. Small favors are more effective because they feel harmless. A compliment, a favor, a moment of attention. Once received, the subconscious begins preparing repayment, often without awareness. This is why people comply after receiving kindness. Why refusal feels rude. Why boundaries weaken. The favor is not the control. The obligation is. Refusing after receiving feels like betrayal. Not logically but emotionally, the subconscious equates refusal with rejection, and rejection threatens belonging. So people comply, even when uncomfortable. Awareness dissolves obligation. Kindness is not a contract. Favors are not debt. When the subconscious understands this, choice returns. The seventh trigger is familiarity. The subconscious equates familiarity with safety. Not accuracy, not goodness. Recognition feels survivable. This is why repeated messages feel true, why familiar faces feel trustworthy, why repeated lies become believable. Familiarity does not persuade. It comforts. The subconscious does not ask why something repeats. It assumes relevance. Repetition lowers resistance. Over time, skepticism fades. Trust replaces analysis. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. The subconscious chooses what it knows, even if it hurts. This is why people stay in damaging situations. Why leaving feels frightening. Familiarity loses power when questioned. Ask not, is this normal, but is this healthy? Awareness disrupts comfort-based obedience. Awareness disrupts automation, and automation is comfortable. The subconscious resists awareness not because it is bad, but because it removes predictability. But without awareness, there is no freedom. Once a trigger is seen, it weakens. Once named, it loses invisibility. This is the psychological truth behind freedom. Freedom is not instant. It returns gradually, with each moment of observation. Control survives in darkness. Awareness dissolves it. Not by force, but by clarity.